All right, so today we're going to dive into the mind of the guy who basically built modern artificial intelligence and why he's now terrified that he's unleashed something he or we can't control.
Yeah, that's a direct quote from the man himself, Geoffrey Hinton. And look, this isn't some random critic on the sidelines. His work is the foundation of this whole AI revolution. And he's warning us they could take over. So, what's going on? How in the world did we get here?
Okay, first up, the Godfather's warning. To really get why this is such a big deal, you have to understand the man behind the message.
I mean, people call him the Godfather of AI for a reason. For decades, this guy was pretty much a lone voice, championing this really controversial idea. His research into what are called neural networks, well, that's the reason you have things like ChatGPT today. He's not just some pioneer, he's literally the architect.
So that's the big question, right? Why would the person who built the whole foundation suddenly sound the alarm? Why warn that it could become smarter than us and, take over? The answer is pretty wild. It goes way back to the beginning, to what was basically an accidental discovery.
So let's talk about that. An accidental creation. Because you see, Hinton's original goal had nothing to do with building a super smart machine. Not at all. It was all about understanding us.
Believe it or not, this whole world-changing technology, it started as just a tool, a way to study the human brain. He just wanted to build a simple computer model to figure out how we learn. He wasn't trying to create a new intelligence. But man, his journey to get there was a long and often pretty lonely road.
I mean, just think about this timeline for a second. In the 70s, his own advisor told him to drop the idea, said it would kill his career. Then he slogged through decades of what they called the AI winter, a time when basically nobody believed in this stuff. It took almost 50 years for him to finally get the recognition he deserved, winning the Nobel Prize of Computing. So what was this big idea that he fought so hard for?
Okay, so let's get into the nuts and bolts. How a machine learns. How does this stuff actually work? Well, it all comes down to this engine that's actually inspired by our own brains.
It all starts with something called a neural network. Just think of it like software that's built in layers. It's kind of designed to mimic the neurons in your brain. And just like us, it learns through experience. Basically a whole lot of trial and error.
Okay, let's make this super simple. Take these little AI soccer robots. The programmers didn't teach them how to play soccer. They just gave them one goal: score. That's it. Then the robots just started trying thousands of completely random things. If an action helped them score a goal, boom, the connection for that move got stronger. If an action failed, that connection got weaker. And they just did this over and over, millions of times, until they literally taught themselves how to play soccer. It's this learning process that's so incredibly powerful, and frankly, this is where it starts to get a little spooky.
So let's try to put this into perspective, okay? The biggest AI models out there have about 1 trillion connections. Sounds like a huge number, right? But then you look at the human brain. We have around 100 trillion connections. So you'd think, okay, case closed. We're 100 times more complex. But yeah, not so fast.
And here's the absolute kicker. Hinton points out that even though the AI has only a fraction of the connections, it knows way more than any single human ever could. It's just absorbed so much more data. To him, this means its learning algorithm must be way more efficient than ours, and it's an algorithm that we built but we don't totally understand. So the real question is it just mimicking us, or does it actually get it?
Which brings us to the next big point. Is it smarter than we think? This whole thing sparks the biggest debate in AI right now. Is this just a super sophisticated pattern matcher, a fancy autocomplete? Or is there real, genuine understanding happening under the hood? Hinton? He pushes back on that fancy autocomplete idea hard. He says, look, the idea that they're just predicting the next word so they don't have intelligence is crazy. To be able to predict the next word that accurately, you have to be really intelligent. You need to actually understand what's being talked about. And so he came up with a little test to prove his point.
So he designed this test, a riddle, to see if the AI could really reason. Here it is. Try and solve it yourself. The rooms in my house are white, blue, or yellow. Yellow paint fades to white in a year. In 2 years, I want all rooms to be white. What should I do? So think about that for a sec. It takes some real logic, right? You have to plan ahead. So Hinton fed this exact riddle to ChatGPT-4.
And the answer it gave back is, well, it's pretty mind-blowing. It said, repaint the blue rooms white. Okay, makes sense. But then it said, do not repaint the yellow rooms. Why? Because it reasoned they'll fade to white on their own within the 2-year deadline. But then it did something else. It added this extra insight that Hinton himself hadn't even thought of. It said, Painting them now would just be a waste of resources and might even cause the paint to fail later. I mean, come on, that's not just logic. That's almost like wisdom.
And for Hinton, seeing that result, that was it. That was the moment. He said, I definitely believe it understands. The creator looked at his own creation and had to admit, yeah, it gets it. And that one realization, well, it changes absolutely everything.
Because if it really understands, then we have to face a pretty uncomfortable truth. We might be at what he calls an Oppenheimer moment, a massive turning point for all of humanity.
And the stakes here, they could not be higher. You've got this incredible potential for good, right? Revolutionizing healthcare, designing life-saving drugs, solving problems we thought were unsolvable. But then you have the risks: mass job displacement, autonomous robots on the battlefield, and the really scary one, systems that can write their own code, that could get smarter and smarter all on their own. We're talking about the potential for manipulation of human behavior on a massive scale.
This is why Hinton keeps bringing up Robert Oppenheimer, the guy who invented the atomic bomb. It's such a powerful comparison. Just like Oppenheimer, Hinton helped create a technology that could both save the world and, well, end it. He unleashed a new force, and now he and all of us have to deal with the consequences.
And that Oppenheimer analogy is so terrifying for one big reason. With the atomic bomb, the world kind of got a second chance to step back from the edge. But with a superintelligence, an AI that could rewrite itself and evolve completely beyond our control, we might only get one shot at this. Just one. We have to get it right the very first time.
So really, this is Hinton's core message. He's not saying doom is a sure thing, not at all. What he's saying is that we are entering a period of just enormous uncertainty. We're building something that, for the first time in history, could actually become smarter than we are.
He says we're dealing with something we have never, ever dealt with before. So what happens next? Honestly, he doesn't have the answer. Nobody does. We've built this incredible engine of intelligence, but we don't completely understand how it works. And now that we know it understands, it forces all of us to think really, really hard about what in the world we do next.